Hi, I'm Jim Edlin, and I'm welcoming you to this new series entitled God Calls a People. In this series, we're going to study the story of how Abraham's descendants moved from their land of slavery to their land of promise. In that story along the way, we'll pick out some highlights from the books in Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, all the way to the book of Joshua. And we'll discover how God forms His people into a community of faith, a church, if you will. You know, some people have said that if the church would be a great place, if only there weren't any people in it. Well, I think I understand what they're saying there. It is difficult to live in a community, isn't it? And it's sometimes just downright challenging. But it's also very rewarding. And I think as we study this quarter, we'll find out that God has a dream for us to be the kind of people that we want to be. We will study about how God leads His people into the desert and onto the mountain, and once again through the desert, and finally onto their homeland. In this kind of a setting, God's going to take care of them at every juncture and every step of the way. You know, God called Abraham back in Genesis chapter 12. He said, I'm going to make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And you will be a blessing to the nations around you. Well, that promise really encompasses the primary promise of God to His people. Three things. The first of these, that He would give them descendants, and then that He would give him a land, and finally, that He would give him a relationship with God Himself. Well, by the time you get to the end of the book of Genesis, you'll notice that God can pretty well fulfill that promise of descendants. There's the stories of Abraham, and then Isaac, and then Jacob and Joseph. You see that God continues to multiply His people. And you know, God's keeping that part of His promise. So we pick up in the study at the point where God now is going to show how He can fulfill that promise of a relationship, how He can fulfill then the promise also eventually of a land. And we'll study how His people move from that land where they were enslaved to a new land where they would be the people of God in their promised land. It's a story with a lot of twists and turns, and yet in the end you'll see how God eventually fulfills His promise to His people. And we'll discover along the way, I hope, that we as the people of God today can become the kind of people that God envisioned for us to be, the kind that God dreamed that we might be, and be the kind of people that we want to be, and that we want everybody else in the church to be. And so, in the end, hopefully we'll find the kind of people that we enjoy being with, and the kind of people that will want to join us.